In episode 4, I started a new series titled Take the First Step. 5 steps you need to take to go from idea to start a business. In today's episode, we will explore step 3, which is the letter R in my first step method. My first step method is an acronym I created to help Christian women move from idea to start a business. I'm super excited to dig into today's episode, but before I do, I'm going to read you a review. This review is from Aunt Juju on Apple Podcast. She says, "Interesting. I need to give this 15 minutes plan a shot." She's referring to episode 3 of this podcast where I spoke about the power of 15 minutes. That episode is a game changer. If you haven't listened to it yet, please go and listen to that episode. Thank you so much, Aunt Juju, for your awesome review. If you haven't left me a review yet, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a written review. I will love to read it live on air. That's one of the ways I know this podcast is transforming your life. I'm super excited you're here. Let's dig into today's episode. Hey sis, welcome to the Start That Business podcast, where you will find practical solutions that empower you to start your service-based business. I'm your host, Chichi Ukomadu, an entrepreneur, wife, mom of 3, and a Jesus follower. 10 years ago, I was afraid of giving up my desire to build a corporate career and say yes to the Holy Spirit's nudge to start that business. I believe personal fulfillment comes from letting go of your way and saying yes to God's way so you can become all you were created to be. If you're ready to find personal fulfillment, grab a cup of coffee, tea, or hot cocoa, and your favorite snack. It's time to take your first step to start that business. You know the one I'm talking about? Yes, that one you've been putting up for a long time. I spent the last 2 episodes walking you through my first step method. Let's do a quick recap of step 1 and 2 for the benefit of those that might just be watching this episode. So the F in my first step method is for find clarity. And I established that finding clarity comes from being quiet in prayer, going back to the source of that business idea you're trying to start and asking him to download into your mind his thoughts about that business. So that's one of the ways you can find clarity. The second thing I spoke about is to take time to reflect on your patterns, your gifts, things you are already doing that is in line with that business you want to start. So just being aware of those things and writing them down is a good place to find clarity. Then the third thing I spoke about under finding clarity is finding a good example. Now, a good example is someone that is already doing the kind of business that you want to start or a semblance of it. A good example is also a resource, a template, an online course, a blog post, a podcast, a resource that has information about the business you want to start. Now, when you find that good example, it becomes a springboard for you to now use it as a template to create the first version of your business. When you have that good example, you see what is possible. It opens your mind up to say, oh, wow, this is something that it is in demand. You can now bring your own unique flavor to it. So that was the F in the first step process, find clarity. Now, the letter I in my first step method is for ideate. And you're not just ideating, you're ideating with your good example as your guide. Now, the ideation process is where you visualize, you conceptualize, you pretty much brain dump your thoughts about that business on a piece of paper, the different things you're thinking of doing just by learning and observing what your good example is doing. So you go through the ideation process. By the time you come out of the ideation process, you should have first draft of the business you want to do, the services you offer, what your pricing might be like, how you would deliver the service, and you have an idea of those things. The third step in my first step method is the letter R, and that's what we're going to focus on today's episode. R is for research and revise. Now, research is very, very important. I know we already found our good example. They've given us an idea of what to expect, what is already going on in that industry, but we need to still spend time to do research so that we can find out more information about specific things that pertain to the business we are trying to start. Your good example might not be doing the exact same type of business that you want to start. That's where market research comes in. And for market research, I would like you to start with Google search. So go on Google search and type in how to start, enter the specific type of business you want to start, and Google will give you a ton of information. Now, the goal here is to read about your industry, to see what is obtainable in the industry where your business will operate in. The reason for this research is to also find out specific information that you need to launch the first version of your business. Now, a word of caution, when you go to Google, I will strongly recommend that you do not go past the first page. So just explore the resources Google gives you on the first page, but don't go to the second page. The reason is I don't want you to fall victim to analysis paralysis. What is analysis paralysis? Analysis paralysis is when you have too much information and you begin to analyze and overanalyze, and before you know it, you are paralyzed, you're stuck, you're not able to make any move because you have too much information. So I will recommend that you restrict yourself to only the first page. Read the resources you have there. Find out information about your specific business. That's one way you can do market research. Another way you can do research is by identifying 5 potential customers within your circle, online, that you can interview. Now, don't get scared. Don't get scared when you hear interview. You're like, how am I going to interview them? What am I going to say? Interview simply means asking them questions. So you want to know more about them. Since they're potential customers, you want to know who they are. Are they male? Are they female? What is their age range? Are they educated? Are they working? You want to get to know more about the customer that you will be serving. You want to ask about how they see the problem that you are bringing a solution to. How do they describe the problem? Because you might be calling the problem one thing and they might be calling it another thing. So when you do this market research, you get to hear what they are calling the problem. And that's what you will use to market to them. Because if they're calling the problem A and you're calling the problem B, and you go and you, on your marketing ad, you put B, you will not attract them because you're speaking 2 different languages. So that's why interviewing them is important. You get to hear what they're calling the problem. They're saying, oh, this problem is A, this problem is A. So when you're doing your marketing down the line, you too will call the problem A because that is what they are calling it. This market research will also help you to learn about what their idea of a solution to solve this problem is. Now, you already have your idea of what the solution is, but when you talk to these potential customers, you might hear things that you haven't even heard before. And you're like, wow, I didn't even think about that. I think I can add it to my service. So this market research, I call it gold. It is information that is like gold because it will help you really hit the target and plan to serve these customers that are within your business. Now, where can you find these people to interview them? You can ask your friends, you can ask your colleagues, you can join Facebook groups where your potential customers are. You might already be part of a Facebook group, so you can go there and post a message. But if you're not part of a Facebook group, you can look for Facebook groups that are specific to your potential customers and join those groups. And like I said, don't be afraid to ask them questions. All you're trying to do is to get more information about this business you're trying to start. An example can be maybe you want to start a fashion or styling or personal shopping business, and you reach out to a colleague and you say, oh, please, do you know people that might be interested in wardrobe styling or personal shopping? And your colleague can say, oh, I have this colleague at work. She's always complaining about how she finds it difficult to put things together to wear in the morning when she has to go to work. So it makes her run late or she's having a bad wardrobe day. I think she will really be a good candidate. That's just an example. So asking people about the service you want to start and say, hey, do you know anybody that can help me in this area? Let me give you another practical example. When I was starting my international personal shopping business, the good example I found was a book, like I mentioned in my previous episode. The book was called How to Become a Personal Shopper. Now, this book was written for people that were starting a personal shopping business in the United States, but I was starting an international personal shopping business. So when I went to Google to search, I was Googling things like individuals in the international personal shopping space. I was Googling apps for managing international personal shopping requests. I was Googling how to price international personal shopping services. So my search was for things that were more specific to an international personal shopper. So that's the beauty of doing the research. You get to search for things that are more specific. As you do this research, one thing I would like to encourage you is to be resourceful. Don't throw your hands up in frustration and say, this is hard. You were created to do hard things, by the way. So don't throw your hands up in the air. Don't be frustrated. In the words of Marie Forleo, being resourceful means having an everything is figure-outable mindset. So have the mindset that everything is figure-outable. So everything I need to know about this new business I want to start is figure-outable. Now let me rephrase it by saying everything is figure-outable with the help of the Holy Spirit. That is the one that helps you figure out everything. So as you do this research process, I want you to adopt that mindset of everything is figure outable. It's one of the key ways to success as an entrepreneur because you're starting this new business. There are a lot of things you have to figure out along the way. So the earlier you begin to adopt this mindset of everything is figure outable, the better it will serve you as you go along the journey. So when you need to find answers to questions about your business, when you need to find solutions to issues you face after you launch the business, when you need to find courage and grit to keep running your business, always have this mindset of everything is figure-outable. All right, let us go to the next one, which is revise. So now that you've spent time doing the research, the next thing you need to do is to streamline the information you already gathered from your ideation step based on this new research that you have done. So streamline the information with this new research, go back and revise the things you wrote down during the ideation process and come up with things that are specific to your business niche. Once you do the streamlining process from this whole revising step, you need to also decide what the key components of your business launch will be. Now, when I say key components, I mean what services will you offer? How much will you price your service? How are you going to deliver this service? What will be your organic marketing channel? And I will talk about marketing channel in another podcast episode, but essentially is how will you organically create awareness and visibility for this new business you're starting? Because you might not have money to start doing the ads, but there are organic ways that you can market this business, things like word of mouth, things like starting a blog post, things like starting a podcast, things like having a YouTube video channel. So in this revision stage, start to decide what these key components will be. Another key component you need to decide on is what business structure am I going to start with? Am I going to start as a sole proprietor? Am I going to start as an LLC? Am I going to start as an Inc? Now, I will talk about this in a different podcast episode, but just have an idea and just decide that, okay, this is the business structure I'm going to start with. Another thing you need to decide as you revise is your policies. So based on the information you've gathered from your research, you can decide, okay, this is what my customers should expect from using my services. I'm going to have maybe a late fee policy or a cancellation policy or a refund policy. So decide on what those things should be and write them down. Now, another thing I will mention is, again, don't fall into the rabbit hole of analysis paralysis. All you need to do is make a decision and run with it. Now, this decision is not final. You're just starting the business. You're going to revise this decision again as you keep growing your business. Things will change. You will get more clarity. You will come back again and revise things. So this decision you're making is not final. So don't let it scare you. Just make a decision and move forward. Don't get caught up with trying to overanalyze. All right. In summary, the third step you need to take today to start your business is to research and revise. Like I said, as you follow your good example, you've done your ideation process. Now you go to market research and you're researching to find specific information you need to launch your first version of your business. You're researching on Google, you're researching by interviewing your potential customers. Now, if 5 is too much for you, you can start with maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but try to speak to a potential customer so that you can get more information. Now, after you've done this research, go back to the things you wrote during your ideation process and revise the information that you already have. Now, once you revise this information, decide on the key business launch components that you're going to use to launch this first version of your business. Isaiah 30:21 says, "Your ears will hear a word behind you. This is the way, walk in it, whenever you turn to the right or to the left." Everything is figure-outable with the help of the Holy Spirit. So a simple prayer you can pray as you research and revise is to say, Holy Spirit, help me figure this out. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated. I'm excited for you. Keep moving. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on today's episode. I'll see you soon. Hey sis, before you go, if this podcast has encouraged you, helped you, inspired you, or taught you something new, please head over to Apple Podcasts and search for Start That Business Podcast and leave me a written review. That's one of the ways I know this podcast is impacting your life. Thank you so much. I'll also love to connect with you on Instagram. My handle is @ChichiUkomadu. Until next time, always remember you have all you need to start that business. I'll see you soon.